Must be Wednesday.
Yeah, if Jim's here, it must be Wednesday. So fun story. Our family's so weird with stuff like this. Good morning, Bethany, Beverly, Jenny, Susie. Wow, they're jumping on early. So you know, because you and I do this sometimes. Like most of the T-shirts we have are the same because we get them all from youth ministry and stuff. And sometimes we'll like show up and we have the same T-shirt or sweatshirt on. Well, I do that with Hope a lot too. And so this morning I go knock on her bedroom door to see if she's ready to go. She opens it up and goes, "Ah, we've got the same sweatshirt on." So she was glad she wasn't on Java and Jesus with me today. We don't do it on purpose, but it happens a lot. So Wednesday, whoo, um, you guys are getting ready to
Another couple of days. Yeah, we'll get on the plane and go to Florida.
take this little thing called a vacation. Do you call it a vacation when you're retired, or is it just a trip?
It's just a family reunion. Yeah, it's the same thing somewhere else.
Okay. I just thought about that. I thought, can you take vacations when you're retired, or do you just go on a
Actually,
trip?
yeah, you kind of can because you get obligations and stuff where you live,
Oh,
and
okay.
so you're stepping away from that.
Okay.
But all your obligations are volunteer, so it's really stuff you want to do anyway.
Yeah, I just can't wrap my head around retirement anyways, but um especially the vacation from retirement. Hmm. I guess if you go on a cruise, that feels a little bit more like a vacation.
If I could have a swimming pool with an ice cream machine by it, it'd be like a cruise all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm just find one of those soft serve machines that anyways, that was one thing on the when we went on a cruise that I liked a lot because the soft serve ice cream was right next to the coffee usually, and they had one at the back of the boat where there was a pool.
Yeah.
But I would like this, especially shouldn't say this like in the mornings because ice cream in the mornings doesn't sound right, but those things work 24 hours.
They do, man. They're
Just
up all night.
just do that and just go back on the back of the boat because there wasn't usually anybody there, and you could just sit and read and.
Yeah. I
But
can normally make it the first 3 days, and then they post a guard.
oh, is that one? Yeah. Can't sleep at night? That's okay. Go get soft serve ice cream and a cup of coffee because their coffee was on all the time too.
And good coffee.
Yeah.
Not Nicaraguan coffee, but not bad.
Oh, Brady is here with Corwin. Hey guys,
Mm.
good morning.
Welcome, Brady.
Can't wait to see him. He's going to be
Yeah.
here for a little bit, I think.
Cool.
Corwin said like a month or so.
Oh, great.
I'll be gone for probably 3 weeks of that, but just one Sunday I'll be here. All but one
Vacation.
Sunday. Yeah, yeah, and so
Arizona?
Flagstaff. Yeah, you have to qualify that because people think you're stupid. Yeah, we're gonna go to Phoenix where it's 117. No, we're going to Flagstaff where it's 76
The
and
mountains are
raining. Just
it's right at the foothills of the mountains, and
yeah,
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 that's a pretty place.
just right here. So anyways, that'll be fun. Want to take a cruise again? We're gonna do it for Hope graduates December 2023.
Hmm.
And so January 2024, we want to do that. But gosh, the cruises are so cheap right
I
now
know.
that I think we might want to take one this next year
Where you want to go?
on a boat.
With an ice cream machine
Yeah.
by the pool.
Christina, good morning. That Christina, that would be a fun family thing to do. A cruise.
That would be. We've done that
They got
with the
little
family.
kids. I don't know how well that works with little kids, but
Take a Disney cruise.
no, those are expensive.
Oh,
So what we did, and the ones that I've been looking at are out of Galveston. So that's a drive, just a day's drive. You don't have to have the airline tickets. Um, for like $400 a person for a 7 day cruise.
oh,
I
that
know,
is so
and it's
tempting.
usually Western Caribbean. I keep saying we need to take that could be our men's conference retreat thing. Cynthia might shoot me if I go out there. So that would be fine. I'm I'm not confident enough yet that they're back to normal all the way. Chris and Karen went on one with their family not long ago.
All right.
And he said it was fine, except in June.
We're going in end of October. Bev, correct me if I'm wrong. And they're still making you be
COVID
COVID
test.
tested 24 prior,
Which is
48.
I just don't know how that works. So what if you test positive?
You don't go.
Do you get your money back or okay, you push? I mean, that's a lot of planning to roll the dice 48 hours before you
Yeah.
go, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost. I don't know.
It doesn't take any planning for me. I've got Beverly.
Yeah. And she plans in her sleep. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so what we're talking about today, gosh, that was like I'm already working on next week's message. So
Now's the time.
I'm gonna have to go back. Oh yeah. Um, now is the time to get right with God. Or did I put it that way? Today's the day. Um, so Jesus, it's really kind of fun, and he takes a little diversion from this, but Jesus is really kind of taking a turn in the way he's talking with people and getting them ready for his death, burial, resurrection, ascension, and return. That's a lot. Um, and so he's been talking about be ready, be faithful. And so in this one, he talks about interpreting the time. So he tells people to interpret the time. And man, so here's what he says. This is the end, this chapter 12, verse 54 to the end of chapter 12. And he says, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you say at once a shower is coming, right? So for us in monsoon season, about 12 every day starts the cloud up, and we say, hey, it's going to rain. Um, and we know it's going to happen. When you see the south wind blowing, Jesus says, you say a scorching wind is coming, or scorching heat, and it happens. And then he says, you hypocrites, you you know how to interpret basically the weather, the signs of weather, but he says, um, why do you not know how to interpret the present time? Now, so just a little bit of context. Jesus was talking specifically about that the Messiah had come. That's something that they had
Right.
been waiting for
The last brick fell.
centuries. Yeah, that the time has come for God to fulfill His promise in bringing the Messiah, the promised one. And so, but for us, um, I think we can take this, but because here's and now for those of you who know me, I'm not like we don't study the book of Revelation with charts and graphs and Israeli newspapers.
Calculator.
Yeah. I just think the Bible's so clear that you're not going to know. You can know that the kind of the season. Yeah. And so I think that's what Jesus is talking about here, but not just his return. And so something that I want to, Paul's going to be back with me on Friday, so I'll toss him the hardball.
Good.
Last week I threw a hardball and I had to catch it. That's no fun.
Come right back at you.
Wait, that's like a boomerang. And so what I want to dig into is this idea, interpreting the times, not so much of Jesus' return, although you do know we are closer than any generation in history.
Well,
and every day we're another day closer.
Right.
So I don't have any biblical basis for this except we're called to be ready all the time. That Jesus' return is imminent. I mean, I really believe that we ought to expect him to be here by lunch. You know what I mean? And I know that that's been the charge to every generation since Jesus went back to be with the Father, but it just feels like it to me. But that's not like anything hard and fast. And there were people in Paul's day that would have said the same thing. They quit their jobs and went and sat on the hill looking in the clouds waiting for him to come back. And Paul said, get back to work, you know?
Well, that makes a good point, and I think you kind of made it Sunday. And that be ready not only makes us ready, but it makes our time here more effective while we're waiting. You know, if
I
we're
believe
doing
so.
what he's supposed to, if we're doing what he says we're doing, then we're ready and we're productive.
And the people who quit their jobs and sitting on the hill, I mean, if Jesus had come back then, they would have been,
Who didn't do
yes, Jesus would have been, what? Did you guys not listen to what I said? You know, that when the master comes back, he wants to find the servant doing what he told him, what the master
make
told him to do.
disciples?
Yes, yes. So, and I said a few things about the last days. Number one, Jesus ushered in the last days. So when someone says, "Do you believe we're in the last days?" Yes, in a real sense, not just chuckling, you know, tongue in cheek kind of thing. When they're talking about when the Bible talks about the last days, that began with Jesus.
Yeah, and that's not newspapers and numerology and all that. That's just
The
here it is.
the last age would be
Right,
another
last
way
age.
to put it. That yes, and then you know when you think about the history of mankind, that's it. This is the end. I mean, we're coming around the last corner, even though that's been 2,000 years. You know, almost not quite. Uh, we we think because it's 2020 that it's been 2,000 years. It's been ish 2,000 years since Jesus was born,
Right,
but it hasn't been 2,000 years yet since he ascended.
right. 34 years, 30 something.
So Jesus, boy, this is getting a little technical for you, and I'll blow some of their minds.
Okay.
So the monk that determined, excuse me, the year Jesus was born. By the way, there's not a year zero. It's one before Christ and one
Right.
in the year of the Lord. Determined that did really good, but he was off a few years. So Jesus was born probably about 4 or 5 BC.
Okay, and then was it 34 years?
He was 33 years old when he was crucified. So
37,
we're
38.
pretty close. Yeah, we're getting pretty close.
So that'd be 2037, 2000.
Something since Jesus ascended to be with the Father, and we, you know, we think, yeah, okay, but are we in the last days? Like are we in the last days of the last days? Well, it feels like it. I don't. You know, the Bible doesn't really say we can tell by that. But anyways, so Jesus ushered in the last days. We are in the last days, in the biblical sense. We're in the last days. Um, then the second thing is there's nothing. That was a big boom. Somebody's playing some music.
Yeah, somebody's boombox or car.
We're in the mountains. Don't do that. There's
Pine cones are rattling off.
yeah. There's nothing that has to happen. Nothing that has to happen before Jesus returns. Now this is big in dispensational theology. I know, which is the ones with all the timelines and
Yeah, I was
stuff.
going to ask you about that. You mentioned the temple, and
Right. There's nothing left that has to happen before Jesus returns. That the idea of, you know, like the temple has to be built back on the Temple Mount, that's all in a particular view of Revelation, a dispensational view of Revelation.
okay. All I remember Jesus saying is there'll be wars, rumors of wars, and that's toward the end.
But that's been happening
Yeah.
since,
Right.
Since Jesus. So, and I know that the dispensational view is probably the most prominent view in America.
Well, we want to know.
But it came around in the 50s. It hasn't always been. Here's why I say this. People in Paul's day fully expected Jesus to return any day. If that were the case, now Revelation hadn't been written yet, but even the early church fathers, we're expecting Jesus' return at any time. The early church fathers, so that would be after the completion of the New Testament in the second century. So, 100 on. That they did not have this calculated view of the end day. This had to happen and this had to happen. They expected him to come back at any time. That didn't come about till around the 50s.
Right.
Um,
The lady, I can't think of her name.
yeah, but that's a dispensational view,
Right.
but that's the most popular view, and that's the one that we just think. I remember talking with someone several years ago about this and rocked her world. She's like, "Wait, I thought that's just like what the Bible taught." I said, "Well, that's just one of the views," and that didn't come around until
Right.
the 50s. So there's nothing left that has to happen. So if you're thinking, I'm unfreezing that just for our benefit.
Okay.
If you're thinking that's one of the big things, the temple has to be rebuilt on the Temple Mount, then Jesus can come back. Be careful, because the parables that Jesus gave, the servants were saying, well, he's delayed in his coming. In other words, he's not coming back for a while. We got time. And those are the ones that Jesus cautions.
Mhm.
So,
I think that's one of the things that makes that view so popular is I want to know. I'm lazy. I can spend the last 10 minutes cleaning up the house before he gets here. But you can't do that if you don't know when he's coming back.
yeah, Jesus isn't going to call us from the bottom of the hill as he heads up. Like
Oh, dang it.
that's what Hope boys. Can you call me when you're heading up the hill, baby? I know what you're doing. You're going to clean like mad for 30 minutes,
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Bev, I forgot my phone, so I can't call you on the way home. So, oh well.
Does she clean like mad on the way home?
No, but we're
Yeah.
old. We're old, so we like to tell each other.
So, and then and just to the big idea is the time to get right with God is now. So all of that goes into the urgency that we should have in making disciples. And I'm a long thinker, so um, the urge that I tend to not get real well, because when I first came here, I don't know if you remember, you and Beverly are the only ones that have stuck it out with us all this time. When I first came, I can't, because they were kind of saying basically how long. I said, well, I can't think of anything less increments. Now, 5 years seems like such a short time. I'm gonna have to start looking at 10, and then I'm thinking of my age, and I'm going, okay, well, plan more than 10 years out in advance.
Yeah, not that many tens left.
I'm not thinking. So, but the thing is that there we need to have the urgency in what Jesus has called us to do.
A couple things you said Sunday really tagged that for me. The making disciples or discipling is one thing we cannot do after the return or until we return. And so urgent from two ways. Christ could come anytime or I could go anytime.
Right. And that could happen even, so that's 2 ways, but there's 3 ways. The person that we should go anytime.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
At the end of the parade on the 4th of July parade, it was almost like someone got kicked out of one of the fire trucks, because the fire trucks are in all the parade. And I'm like, well, good grief, you couldn't seem to get out of there quick enough. She goes, they got me, had a stroke. I mean, so you just don't know. I mean, it could happen. So, and we need to interpret the time. We don't need to put off making disciples, and so that's one reason we're going to really press into. I can't think of anything to call it, but the circles. But in making disciples, had a great time with the youth last week.
They were so good.
Yeah.
So good. And the team that came in was.
Yeah. And you nailed it. Usually we have a group. It goes one of 2 ways. We have a group of students, youth, that are really talkative, but then it's hard to get them quiet to listen. Or we have a group that's really studious, but then they're not jumping into the games or conversation a whole lot.
Right.
This one was both.
It was.
Um, and I love almost did some video, but I love when it was time for you guys to practice with one another. Everybody was
Forehead to
into
forehead.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Discipling practice. That was
So,
incredible.
so that's something I just really want to. I mean, I want our church to be. Oh, the picture freezes off and on. Check your internet. No, I'm kidding. We've had problems with ours last couple of days.
It's us.
Yeah, we
Oh.
sometimes we hold really still while we're talking. No, we'll try not to. Um, so so there's the urgency, but there's one other way that I think that we could interpret times, and I didn't dig into it on Sunday. And this is something I want to dig into with Paul. I kind of mentioned it, but not a whole lot. Um, in the U.S., I've said this over the last year or so. In the U.S., I don't know if I mean, and I don't watch the news much, so when I do, it's a shock, to me. I'm like, oh, that's happening. Um, in the U.S., the climate is ripe for a severe turn against Christianity. Um, just with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and if you dig into this, it's I mean, it's a big deal. That should have never been a constitutional decision, anyways. But people are losing their minds. They're acting like he told them they couldn't eat anymore. I mean, it's the reaction to that is like so far beyond. So it tells to me it's a spiritual, but that's not the thing. Just I think that the climate is ripe in the U.S. to take a severe turn against. Kind of been feeling this for a while. Um, at the same time, there seems to be almost, I wouldn't call it a revival, but a resurgence among believers, among Christians, the church.
Defend the faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that's going, but I think we need to be. My tendency is to just not watch it or anything like that because my watch tells me to breathe whenever I. Your heart rate's been over 120 for the last 5 minutes and you're sitting still, that kind of thing. So I trust the news too much, but we need to interpret the time. We need to know there may be a time even in our when making disciples, sharing the gospel is going to cost us. Now, I would be surprised if it started costing people their lives like it has been. And by the way, that's never stopped in the world since Stephen, the first martyr for the gospel. That's not stopped. People have been dying for their faith since Jesus returned to be with the Father. So I don't know that it'll be that here, but I think it's going to start to cost us. And so interpret the time to be ready, but still have that sense of urgency. That's something I want to do a little bit with Paul on Friday is how do we interpret the time that we're in, because Jesus told us to do that, and what should our response be? I mean, how do we respond? What difference ought that to make in our lives?
I don't want to get into Paul's answer,
but you can give him an idea. He'd be glad to.
I'll just being engaged and being informed is essential to being effective for the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fine line that's in the world but not of the world.
Right. And I'm thankful for people. A couple of weeks ago, someone came up and I had mentioned, responded to the Revo. That's when you put a bunch of stuff. Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court, and he came up and said he personally had been in D.C. working with legislators to help. Well, I guess but you know what I mean. For that, I guess in preparation for the decision from the Supreme Court now with states. But I'm thankful people are doing that. We need to be salt and light in the world, and that's a tough that's a that's a tough tension that we have, that in the world but not of the world. That we're not changed by the world, but we're changers in the world. And so that's what Paul and I want to dig into. I'm a really hardball curve because he's missed a couple. But how do we interpret the time for us, and how do we respond knowing that making disciples is the mission? And I always wonder this. I start sounding like the downer kind of guy.
Not at all. I think we talked about it, I think last night, about this as part of the adventure, being involved as a Christian in life is exciting. It's not easy, but it's engaging.
Yeah, yeah. So we are living in the end times. We may be at the end of the end times.
Closer than we were yesterday.
Closer than any generation has ever been. Every day, that's even more true.
I like what you said about 2,000 years. He's never going to come back. 2,000 years could be here now.
Yeah. Yeah. We should be waiting. So let me. Oh, the Great Awakening. Bethany says,
Oh yeah.
I pray for revival, but I'm going to prepare for persecution. Pray for the best and prepare for the worst. Yeah. Is that right?
Well, the whole thing that Michael's making with Steve Myers and all those guys
that has been just watching that kind of old, and we need to get Michael to talk with us. We need to promote this more in our church, but just watching that unfold, you guys, I think I could say that it could help you understand the miracle of Michael getting the caliber of people that he's getting to be in this film.
Yeah, the magnitude of it is just.
And I'm trying to remember. Oh, the last one, he may have Sean McDowell, who just totally set up time. But then when I think Hugh Ross had a communication with him and said, "Hey, look at this little clip, that he did of me," and so he may have Sean McDowell on there, which to me is. But because of that, but Sean McDowell's an apologetic person in his own right. But there's only one that's still a holdout that he wanted originally, and that's William Lane Craig, the Reasonable Faith Ministries I was telling you about. But he's the only holdout right now, and he may look at everyone else in there and say, "Well, I don't want to be left out of that." It's. I just can't get across to you this year the miracles that God is working in getting these kind of people into Michael's movie. Crazy. So, anyways, let me pray for you. Send you off halfway through the week. You guys are heading out, and what is today? Today's the 6th.
Yeah, 2 days.
2 days. Wow. In El Paso. That's where you're heading out from.
Yep.
We were looking for flights. We have a conference in Tennessee in October, and yikes, they've gone up since last year. I was going, it's okay, well, let's don't buy right now. Let's wait a little bit. Then I was thinking driving might be cheaper, but that's a 2 hard days drive to Nashville. Anyhow, let me pray for you guys. Lord, would you help us to live with a sense of urgency and expectancy in Jesus' return? God, would you let that not be just a feeling of dread for us, but one of excitement? And God, would you help that to be the thing that motivates us in sharing Christ with others? I pray, God, as we do, as we seek to make disciples, Lord, in these times, that our sense of urgency and expectancy would be seen and received to those that we talk to, so that they would know this isn't something that they can put off, that now is the time to get right with God. And So, Lord, would you just move in people's faith in Christ? In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Love you guys. Thanks for jumping with us. Hanging on while we sit and visit. I love when I have it. It's no fun by myself anymore. I used to do this all the time, but it's a whole lot more fun with you guys jumping in. So love you, and we will see you with Paul on Friday.